Two of the best EUCs ever made today are getting compared head-to-head. The Leaperkim Veteran Sherman L and the Leaperkim Lynx. Which one's better for you? We're gonna talk about it right now. Let's get started. This is Wheel Good time. Let's get the identical stuff out of the way and then we'll move into the differences. First off, they both have a 151 volt system with 3200 watt motors. They have identical motors and they have extremely similar, maybe identical, I'm not 100% sure, maybe identical motherboards between these two wheels. Also, both of these wheels have the same hot trash charger. This charger is extremely unreliable, and personally, if I were you, I would highly recommend getting a completely different charger. These things just have such a tendency to break. They don't always put out the voltage that you're intending them to get. Sometimes they're down by a volt or two, and you have to manually adjust that. Not a big deal, but they have a really high failure rate. So for that reason, I suggest that you put this charger into storage and get yourself a fast charger. I personally recommend the PidZoom Smart Charger. It's one that I use at home all the time and it has adjustable charging. And the cool thing about it is it's reliable. I also recommend using PidZoom just because they are, in my opinion, the most competitively priced on the market, but they have a really good warranty. Next, these wheels have the same lack of pads that come in the box. All they come with is toe locks. Not these ones either. The toe locks that come with it are okay, they'll do, but I highly recommend you get yourself a set of aftermarket pads to make this wheel usable. My personal recommendation is to use Vertex pads, but if you buy from Next Gen Mobility, then they include a set of pads free in the box. They're made by Beto, and they're pretty good. Not the best, but they're pretty good, and honestly, they're very acceptable. If I had to give those pads a letter grade, I'd say probably a B+. Not bad. Next, both of these wheels have the exact same headlight, which is extremely bright. And on the back end, the taillights are absolutely identical. It's the exact same part. And frankly, both of these lights are really, really bright and very visible in bright daylight. I wanna do a brief mid-video shout out to Next Gen Mobility. I personally got both of these with my own money from nextgenmobility.org, and I highly, highly recommend that you do the same. They have, by a landslide, the best value offered in the EUC industry. So for that reason, I highly recommend that you check them out in the video description down below. Now, where were we? Lastly, with the similarities, these wheels are both made by Leaperkim, and therefore their build quality is absolutely second to none. If you were to ask me, it's the best build quality in the entire EUC industry. So it is phenomenal. Both of these I absolutely love. But now let's talk about the differences. The Lynx has a 2700 watt hour battery, whereas the Sherman L has 4000 watt hours of battery. Basically, the Lynx has batteries in a 4P configuration, whereas the Sherman L has them in a 6P configuration. Now, when the Lynx was originally released, they offered it in a 50E battery configuration, but honestly, nobody wanted it. Everyone wanted the 50S battery version because it's better. So as a result, the Sherman L only comes in a 50S battery version, and I couldn't be happier about that. But because the L has 50% more battery capacity, that also means that it is a true long-range wheel. Don't get me wrong, the Lynx is incredibly efficient with its battery. If you compare the Lynx to some of its competitors that say have 2400 watt hours or 3000 watt hours of battery, the Lynx still absolutely blows it away in terms of range. I don't know how they do it. It's just magical the way they program their motherboards and the way that it draws the power. It's phenomenal. Now with the L, you have 50% more of the Lynx's magic. So you can compare the Sherman L with something like the EX30 or the Commander Pro, which has 3600 watt hours of battery, but it's a lower voltage. Or you can compare it to, say, the Master Pro, which has 4800 watt hours of battery. Now, in the range test comparisons that I've done, the Sherman L gets about 10 to 30%, depending on the ride, more range compared to the EX30, and about the same or ever so slightly less compared to the Master Pro. But it's in such a smaller package compared to the Master Pro, and compared to the EX30, it's about the same weight and size. If you're riding the Lynx fast and hard, you can expect about 30 miles of really high speed, spirited riding, compared to the Sherman L, where if you're riding super fast, you can expect about 50 to 60 miles of range. However, if you're riding the Lynx really chill, you can expect about 60 to 70 miles of range, whereas with the Sherman L, you can expect about 100 plus miles of range. But the biggest thing that people want to know about with the difference between these two is the performance. Now, let's be real here. They have identical motherboards. They are almost identical in so many ways, but because both of these have a 50% difference in battery capacity, that translates to a noticeable difference when it comes to performance. Both of these wheels have an identical top speed, basically as fast as you want. Some riders are able to go 60 miles an hour or slightly more GPS speed on either one of these. But because the L has 50% more batteries, the Sherman L has 102 pounds, while the Lynx here comes in at 88 pounds. That means that the Lynx is going to be slightly more maneuverable than the Sherman L just because it weighs less. What that translates to is that it's going to make it a little bit better for off-roading, a little bit better for jumping, and a little bit better for racing. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not saying that the L is no good at off-roading and jumping and racing. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the Lynx is a little bit better at that just because it's lighter weight. The L has so many strengths of its own that personally I prefer, and that is it's better at high-speed, long-range road cruising. But that's just a personal opinion. I like to do long-range, high-speed rides. That's just my thing. But if you're into, say, off-roading, then the Lynx is going to be your best friend. The L is still able to perform very admirably doing all those things, but we're comparing something that is good at racing, off-roading, and jumping compared to the best in the world at all of those things. So it's not really fair to compare the two, but the L is still a formidable thing on the trails, etc. But let's talk about how both of these will perform on the track. The Lynx has already won a lot of podiums on the racetrack. However, the L, I don't think, could be wrong, I don't think has gotten on the podium quite yet. That doesn't mean it can't do it, but the thing is with the L, being that it is a bit heavier, the moment of inertia is a little bit slower than the Lynx. So on the racetrack, you often want something that is relatively lightweight. So when you lean far forward, it starts going quickly. The L is still capable on the track. It's just not quite as capable as the Lynx. The biggest difference between these two, other than that moment of inertia and the weight factor, is that the L is definitely going to be more stable, especially at high speeds. That's because of the weight. An extremely skilled rider is able to mitigate that with a lighter weight wheel. So you're going to see a lot of racers using lighter weight wheels on the track. But if you just want to go on a long range cruise and you want comfort, the L is what you want. Now, some people don't like to have this particular toe lock. I do, but for those that don't like it, you can just remove the toe lock on the L. It's very simple and easy. And now we compare it to the Lynx, where in order to remove this toe lock, it's this big old piece here that you have to remove, and then you have some missing areas here and some holes that have to be filled on the underside. So this is a bit more of a challenge. You have to 3D print something to cover up those holes, but it is possible to remove them. It's just not quite as easy as it is on the L. The trolley handle is centrally mounted on the L, and it is super duper reliable. It's super sturdy. It's really nice. But because it is located on the top here, it doesn't give you a whole lot of options for seating. If you don't have a seat, this is not going to be a comfortable seated ride. So you're going to have to get yourself a seat. With the Lynx, it is almost the same story. If you want to ride seated, you do have a nice flat surface here. It's just not going to be super comfortable, so I still recommend getting a seat for it. But with the Lynx, all you have to do is press down on this button, it pops up. It is a bit more on the flimsy side, but I personally prefer having a trolley handle that pops up here and doesn't get very much in the way of seated riding. Which one of these EUCs is better? The long-range high-speed wheel or the more versatile but lower range wheel? Which one is the best? And if you say Begode in the comments section, then you will be shadow banned forever. Don't forget to hammer that subscribe button if you are interested in the latest news, rumors, leaks, and reviews of anything in the EUC industry. That's all for today's video. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.